What if I told you you could have highlights and shadows for free in your miniature painting? Wouldn't you want to sign up for that? In this video, we're going to do some deliberate practice and apply a Zenithal prime to our miniature. Welcome to the practice sessions. Before we get too far into the Zenithal priming, and certainly before we get to the demo, I feel that it's important to talk about what exactly a Zenithal prime is. In the simplest explanation, Zenithal priming is simply priming your miniature with a dark color all over, and then a successive series of lighter colors from above. For example, you could prime your miniature black, spray gray at a 45-degree angle, and then white at a 90-degree angle from directly above the miniature. Or you could do a dark to light blue progression if you're painting an ultramarine, for example. Or if you're doing a blood angel, you could do dark red through light red using that same all over spray for the dark color, 45-degree angle for your mid-tone, and a 90-degree angle for your lighter tone. What this does is that it sets the value gradations from the shadows to the highlights of your miniature by mimicking how light would naturally fall if this were a life-size figure. So when you do the mid-tone from 45-degree angle, you're representing the reflected light from the environment around the miniature. And the 90-degree angle represents the sun when it's directly above the miniature, hence the zenith or zenith in the name Zenithal. This is a valuable technique that I use a lot in my painting because it makes it easier for me to read the details of the miniature. If you prime your miniature all one color, the details sort of get lost because there's no contrast. By adding the two successive lighter shades, we reintroduce contrast back in and we pick out the details, making them lighter than the shadows around them. Overall, this increases the contrast of the miniature and makes it much easier to read. So that is the short version of what a Zenithal prime is. So how we apply it is also, it's simple, but it takes some practice. First, we take our dark color, which is going to be most commonly black, and we're going to apply that all over the miniature in nice smooth coats. If you need to have some help with priming the miniature, you can look up here, and I'll have a video there for you to watch on how to prime a miniature using a spray can. You can also apply the black primer with an airbrush, or you can brush it onto your miniature. The second step is going to be to apply our mid-tone color, which in most cases is probably going to be a neutral gray, from a 45-degree angle only. So we don't want to go all over the miniature with this one. We want to keep that relationship at 45 degrees. Once that is done and dried, then we want to take our highlight color, which is mostly going to be white in most cases, and we basically want to spray it at a 90-degree angle, essentially top down. So if you rotate your miniature to look at the very top of it, that is the angle you want to spray the white from. Now you can also apply the Zenithal prime with a dry brush as well. In fact, in our demonstration here in a little bit, we're actually going to dry brush on a Zenithal prime. We're going to use, I use my airbrush to put a black layer of primer on, and then I'm going to dry brush on a gray and a white, and it will achieve the same effect as if I had sprayed it from my airbrush or from spray cans. So how do we dry brush on a Zenithal highlight? So we're going to start with our miniature at an all black state, and what we're going to do is we're going to load up our dry brush. You can use a makeup brush, a flat brush, or a domed brush for this. We're going to load it up with our mid gray, and we're going to take most of the paint back out. Now we want to come in a little heavier than you would as if you were dry brushing on an edge highlight here. So we want to hit all the surfaces except the deepest recesses and nooks and crannies. Then we're just going to dry brush that on in a downward stroke only. So with a lot of dry brushing, you want to go across the detail no matter what direction. In this case, we want to be very directional and only want to take our stroke from the top, traveling down to the bottom of the miniature, pull the brush back a little bit, raise it back up to the top, and take your next stroke. It takes a little bit of practice, but pretty soon you'll get pretty quick at that, and it'll become second nature how far to pull the brush back. Once we finish dry brushing on the gray and we give it a little bit of time to dry, we're going to repeat the process with our white, only this time we're going to be very, very careful to remove almost all the paint so we only catch the edges, the upturned edges. And again, we're going to bring that down in a downward stroke only. Now, if you have a part of a miniature where your brush is too big to fit in, use a smaller brush to make sure you can get in those cracks and crevices here. And you get all the surfaces that you want, gray or white, to be hit. Sometimes the pose of the miniature can create difficulties in accessing all the areas, so a smaller brush can get in where a larger brush wouldn't. But generally speaking, use the largest brush you can that will fit into the space, because it'll give you a more even coverage. And then when you're done, turn the model upside down and look at it from the bottom. You should see black and a little gray. You shouldn't see any white. And then turn it right side up, look at it from top down. You should see white and gray, but no black. And if you've achieved that, then you've applied a Zenithal prime to this miniature successfully. So where do we go from here? Well, you can go a variety of different ways with a variety of different skills. For example, you could take a high transparent, highly pigmented ink, contrast paint, or speed paint, and apply a single coat of coverage over those, and allow those white and black areas to alter that base color to create your highlights and shadows. In fact, this technique is known as the slap chop. Or you could take normal paint, thin it down into a glaze, and glaze that color up to the desired opacity, and you're done. This method also allows that undercoat to shine through. Or what I do a lot is I photograph the mini here at this current stage, and I use that as a reference. So that way I can paint with more opaque layers. So when I put that base coat on, I'm going to lose the Zenithal highlighting, but I'll have that photo reference I can use to layer on my highlights later on in the miniature painting process. So if you enjoyed this video, hit the thumbs up down below. Don't forget to subscribe. And if you did like this video, right up here, or here, one of the two, there's going to be another one you're probably going to like as well. And I'll see you in the next video.